What is considered offensive or trashy if you are poor but acceptable if you are wealthy?
Makes me remember the joke. If 50 Shades took place in a trailer park, it would be a Criminal Minds episode.
Wearing weird, unusual clothing all the time. If you are poor, you are a weirdo. If you are rich, you are just eccentric. Rich plus mentally ill equals quirky and eccentric. Poor plus mentally ill equals dangerous and crazy.
Day drinking.
I learned that I'm rich today. Edit, misremembered the question. I learned I'm trashy today.
God, this is a whole mood right here.
Owning an RV. That's a good one. Is it your fancy pants vehicle for hitting the road, or do you live in a hope comes here to die trailer park?
I'm quarantined in a tiny living space in the woods, but I'm working remotely doing video calls. I'm really trying to make sure I give off hipster tiny house glamping vibes and not icy. Cash 2 Salt has headed for the hills. When should we expect you to publish your manifesto? Quote,
this is the exact reason I'm looking forward to Starlink coming online. There are a lot of very beautiful and relatively inexpensive places I could work from with a UFO on a stick antenna on an RV. Did it for over a year in 2015 with just LTE. And it was a phenomenal experience. 12 states, 40 cities, scuba on 3 coasts, 2 music festivals and 1 professional conference. Equals
having strangers living in your house with you, not seeing your kids a lot, riding bicycles on main roads, multiple cars in front of the house, eating animals that most people don't eat, owning a limousine, knowing lawyers and judges well.
Drugs. Holy smokes, cocaine in the 80s. Cocaine in the nowsies, my guy.
Going to the horse races. If you've ever been to the track on a Tuesday afternoon, you know it ain't a pretty sight. But that's not the picture NBC paints at the Kentucky Derby.
Everybody knows that the Kentucky Derby is decadent and depraved, off-the-planet craziness. Think Kanye vs some poor regular guy who makes 0 sense. Definitely. When you're rich, getting away with craziness is much easier. Biggest thing is leisure spending. IMO. Somehow a billionaire wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars on shit she doesn't need and will use once is considered cool. But her poor person saving up and buying a nice purse or bottle of booze is seen as wasteful.
There's a huge desire to morally police poor people, as if we know what they've been through and how they should spend their money. You're so right. Not having a job, getting high, spending money on non-essentials. At least that's how it seems. Oh, for sure. The poor 19-year-old smoking ditch weed behind one of their apartment buildings is somehow way less socially and legally acceptable than the millionaires railing coke and designer drugs. Hoarding vehicles. If you live in a home that's mobile surrounded by 15 cars that aren't, you're probably a redneck. Jeff Foxworthy. Having sex with minors, apparently.
Yup. Was going to say being a pedo, but this sounds classier. Taking money from the government. Unemployment, food stamps. Trashy. Business bailout, tax loophole. Classy.
Be in debt.
It's considered leveraging. I've heard before more repos happen in the nicer neighborhoods than not because a $300 car payment is more accessible than a several thousand. Also, a lot of people consider taking a mortgage even if they have that amount of money and investing their money. If the interest on mortgage is lower than what they get on their investment, they are actually earning even though they are technically in debt. Shirts with holes in them.
If your shirts don't have holes in them, how do you get them on? Cover yourself in molten polyester and wait for it to solidify to your body shape. How do you put yours on? I am covered in burns. PLS help.
It will stop hurting if you rub salt into the wounds. Having a big screen TV. I've had to do home visits with people often and they always get so mad that these poor families would have one.
For some, that's their only entertainment. They don't have money to go out for dinner, the club, theater, vacations. Having a nice TV or game console is all we have. My neighbors have a huge one, but it is easy to obtain from rent-to-own places with no credit checks. They are paying weekly for that TV with very high interest rates.
Financial illiteracy. Like, this is how poor people stay poor. They'll end up paying 4x the amount, $2,000 paid with interest for a TV that costs $500. Just because they see $12 a week and think it's a good deal. Paying for sex. I was going to say trafficking. Having multiple kids with multiple partners.
Minimalism. If you're rich and you live in a tiny house and don't have a lot of material possessions, you are considered enlightened and living a good life. If you're poor and you live in a tiny house and don't have a lot of stuff, you are considered a loser. Doing literally anything except suffering tbh. Even suffering. Get up, bitch. Quote, "You literally broke both my legs with a baseball bat." What sort of bitch-ass excuse is that? I only have $50 shoes. You don't hear me complaining. Quote,
hunting people for sport.
Tax offenses. If you make $20,000 a year and don't do your taxes right, you'll be fucked. If you are rich and withhold a few $1,000,000 in taxes, you're usually fine. There are some laws that allow the rich to pay their taxes later. Like WAAAAAAAAAAY later. WAAAAY down the line. Florida.
Haha, rich Florida and Florida are two very different things. Wearing lingerie as outerwear.
Wait, which rich people do this? For research purposes. Superman ain't broke.
Leopard print.
Yes. I wore a leopard print Henley shirt to work for the first time recently and everyone loved it. I told them I hadn't worn it before because I didn't know if it was classy, or if it made me look like the trashy chain-smoking husband-stealing divorcee at the retirement home.
Not paying taxes.
A backyard shower.
This is a pretty good answer. One of my extended family married into wealth and has an outdoor shower that looks like it was from a spa. When I was a kid, I used the same outdoor shower we used to clean off our cows. Stealing. I steal from a store. Jail time. They steal millions of dollars in unpaid taxes and stolen wages. Business savvy.
Tax loopholes are not stealing. It's just the smartest way to pay your taxes. Blame your country's tax policies. Receiving money from the government.
The rich don't want the poor to cut into their government pity money. Smoking a cig. Also gambling.
Wanting to study instead of working.
Since when is it offensive trashy to want to study when you're poor? There are scholarships just for that demographic, and it's always said being educated gets you out of poverty.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the opposite. Wanting to work instead of going to college is seen as just accepting your lot in life instead of trying to rise above it. Other poor people tend to judge you if you choose to study, though. I say this from experiences. The first person in my family to ever step foot in a college.
Depends on where you live. Some countries might pay you if you study. I disagree with this one. At least in my country, studying is almost universally accepted as better than working if you can. Doesn't even matter if it is uni or a tradie job.
Being fat, liking food. If you are poor, you are a fat slob. If you are rich, you are gourmet.
I don't think most people consider fat rich people as gourmet, more likely as gluttons.
With your own personal chef. And you get 2 servings of dessert. Based on the other replies, pretty much everything.
Dressing provocatively. When you're rich, it's a fashion statement. When you're poor, you're a working girl. Crime. Mental
health changes from crazy to eccentric at a certain wealth point. Camping. Rich, you're enjoying nature. Poor, homeless, boo monsieur.
Spending more money than you have.
Abstract wall art poster from Walmart vs. An original on canvas that looks worse than the Walmart one. Dressing, looking like a hobo. Poor equals hobo, rich equals hipster. Human trafficking. Pedophilia. Having weird names. Yeah, we still laugh at some of the names celebrities give their kids, but it will never stop them from getting work or living their lives of luxury. Crying about having to be quarantined. Fuck off, Ellen. We don't want to hear about how hard it is to stay in your $1 million mansion with your beautiful wife and probably a private chef, butler, cleaner. Some people still had to go out and work because they wouldn't be able to afford food otherwise. Some people get evicted and made homeless in the time you could have donated something to help them, as you so willingly do with other millionaires. Ahem, pardon my outburst.
Not cleaning your house.
Parking your car right in front of the door, instead of in a parking space. Taking money from the government. Being an asshole to poor people. That's not okay at all. Everything. Other people raising your kids.
Having children out of wedlock. Poor equals baby mama. Daddy rich equals life partner. Government handouts.
Didn't we already see this?
Every week.
Possibly. I did a search and the last time the Google showed was 2008. It seems like it might be a common question. Apologies if it's a regular occurrence.
Skimpy clothes, random sex, creative kid names.
Racism. Trump has how many kids by how many different moms? I don't think anyone really cares how many kids anyone has with whoever they want. The issue is when people don't pay to take care of the first one and then have 4 more.
Holding your kid's wedding and reception in your backyard.
Shitting in a bucket, trailer living. Hear me out. You drive by a trailer park and or know someone who lives there. They have no power. Make do with less. And poo in a bucket. Trashy. Right, but put a bunch of white wannabe hippies in a tiny house on wheels where they recycle everything. Have solar, no power, and shit in a bucket for compost. And they're goddamn heroes. I'm white. Before you get mad at me for generalizing. Greater than I'm white before you get mad at me for generalizing. Okay, I'll give you your cracker pass.
Fucking kids, apparently. This can be interpreted 2 different ways.
Drug addiction.
Drugs. Rich people doing them 24/7 is glamorous, but a normal doing it had a problem, monsieur.
Taking government handouts. Living in a trailer versus a tiny home.
This needs to be higher. Poor. I'm just trying to make the most out of the space I can afford. Rich. OMG, look at this tiny place I live in. I'm so quirky. Quote, not working.
Pedophilia, at least until recently, apparently.
Not paying your taxes.
Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.